Hey guys, it's Jordan, and today I'm going to be reading some more of In Cold Blood for you guys. I'm filming this on my iPad because Miss Haynes thinks the audio sounds better, so I'm doing it to please her, I guess. That's why it's also kind of taboo that I'm laying like this, but sorry, you're going to have to deal with it. Also, I don't know what the heck's going on right here, so you guys are also going to have to deal with that too. I don't know what the heck is going on with everything, like that's just that you can see right now. I don't know what's going on. I'm just trying to do this as quick as possible because let's be honest, you don't want to read this. I want to read this because my mom wants to pay me, and also I just want to read this really fast so then I can go back to watching David Dobrik. Anyway, I'm going to be starting on page 66 at 8 nonstop passengers, and I'm going to be reading through to 74, I believe. Yes, page 74. And yeah, let's just jump into In Cold Blood, guys. 8 nonstop passenger trains hurry through Holcomb every 24 hours. Of course, 2 pick up and deposit mail, an operation that, as the person in charge of it feverishly explains, has its tricky side. Yes, sir, you've got to keep on your toes. Them trains come through here. Sometimes they're going 100 miles an hour. Debris alone, why, it's enough to knock you down. And when those mail sacks come flying out, sakes alive, it's like playing tackle on a football team. Wham! 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 Not that I'm complaining, mind you. It's honest work. Government work, and it keeps me young. Holcomb's mail messenger, Mrs. Sadie Truitt, or Mother Truitt as the townspeople call her, does seem younger than her years, which amounts to 75. A stocky, weathered widow who wears babushka bandanas and cowboy boots, most comfortable things you can put on your feet, as soft as a loon feather. Mother Truitt is the oldest native-born Holcombite. The word is literally Holcombite. Why would it be Holcombite? The city is not called... Sorry, that sounded really dumb. I had to correct myself. Time wasn't anybody here, wasn't my kin. Them days, we called this place Sherlock. Then along came this stranger by the name Holcomb. A hog raiser he was. Made money and decided the town ought to be called after him. Soon as it was, what did he do? Sold out. Moved to California. Not us. I was born here. My children was born here. And here we are. One of her children here is Miss Myrtle Clare, who happens to be the local postmistress. Only don't go thinking that's how I got this position with the government. Mert didn't even want me to have it, but it's a job you bid for. Goes whoever puts in the lowest bid. And I always do. So low a caterpillar could peek over it. Ha ha! That sure does rile the boys. Lots of boys would like to be mail messenger, yes sir. But I don't know how much they'd like it when the snow's high as old Mr. Primo Carnera, and the wind's blowing blue hard and those sacks come sailing. Ugh! Wham! In Mother Truitt's profession, Sunday is a workday like any other. On November 15th, while she was waiting for the westbound 1032, she was astonished to see 2 ambulances cross the railroad tracks and turn toward the cluttered property. The incident provoked her into doing what she had never done before, abandon her duties. Let the mail fall where it may, this was news that Mert must hear at once. The people of Holcomb speak their post office as the Federal Building, which seems rather too substantial a title to confer on a drafty and dusty shed. The ceiling leaks, the floorboards wobble, the mailboxes won't shut, the light bulbs are broken, the clock is stopped. Yes, it's a disgrace, agrees the caustic, somewhat original, and entirely imposing lady who presides over this litter. But the stamps work, don't they? Anyhow, what do I care? Back here in my part is real cozy. I've got my rocker and a nice wood stove and a coffee pot and plenty to read. Miss Clare is a famous figure in Finney County. Her celebrity derives not from her present occupation but a previous one, dance hall hostess, an incarnation not indicated by her appearance. Sis, once again, appearance, that is not a word. It is appearance. She is a gaunt, trouser-wearing, woolen-shirted, cowboy-booted, ginger-colored, gingery-tempered woman of unrevealed age. That's for me to know and you to guess. But promptly revealed opinions, most of which are announced in a voice of rooster crow altitude and penetration. Until 1955, she and her late husband operated the Holcomb Dance Pavilion, an enterprise that, owing to its uniqueness in the area, attracted from 100 miles around a fast-drinking, fancy-stepping clientele whose behavior, in turn, attracted the interest of the sheriff now and then. We had some tough times, all right, says Miss Clare, reminiscing. Some of those bow-legged country boys, you give 'em a little hooch and they're like redskins, want to scalp everything in sight. Of course, we only sold setups, never the hard stuff itself. Wouldn't have, even if it was legal. My husband, Homer Clare, he didn't hold with it. Neither did I. One day, Homer Clare, he passed on 7 months and 12 days ago today, after a 5-hour operation out in Oregon. He said to me, Mert, we've lived all our life in hell. Now we're going to die in heaven. The next day we closed the dance hall. I've never regretted it. Oh, along at first I missed being a night owl, the tunes, the jollity, but now that Homer's gone, I'm just glad to do my work here at the Federal Building. Sit a spell, drink a cup of coffee. In fact, on that Sunday morning, Miss Claire had just poured herself a cup of coffee from a freshly brewed pot when Mother Chewett returned. "Mert," she said, but could say no more until she had caught her breath. "Mert, there's 2 ambulances gone to the Clutters." Her daughter said, "Where's the 1032? "Ambulances, gone to the Clutters." "Well, what about it? It's only Bonnie having one of her spells. Where's the 1032? Mother Chewett subsided. As usual, Mert knew the answer was enjoying the last word. Then a thought occurred to her. But Mert, if it's only Bonnie, then why would there be 2 ambulances? A sensible question, asked Miss Claire, an admirer of logic, though a curious interpreter of it, was driven to admit. She said she would telephone Miss Helm. "Mabel will know," she said. The conversation with Miss Helm lasted several minutes and was most distressing to Mother Chewett, who could hear nothing of it except the non-committal, monosyllabic responses of her daughter. Worse, when the daughter hung up, she did not quench the old woman's curiosity. Instead, she placidly drank her coffee, went to her desk, and began to postmark a pile of letters. "Mert," Mother Chewett said, "for heaven's sakes, what did Mabel say?" "I'm not surprised," Miss Claire said. "When you think how Herb Clutter spent his whole life in a hurry, rushing in here to get his mail with never a minute to say good morning and thank you, dog, rushing around like a chicken with his head off, joining clubs, running everything, getting jobs maybe other people wanted. And now look, it's all caught up with him. Well, he won't be rushing any more." "Why, Mert? Why won't he?" Miss Claire raised her voice. "Because he's dead! And Bonnie, too. And Nancy. And the boy. Somebody shot him." "That was harsh, sis. You did not have to come for his wig like that." "Mert, don't say things like that. Who shot them?" Without a pause in her postmarking activities, Miss Claire replied, "The man in the airplane, the one Herb sued for crashing into his fruit trees. If it wasn't him, maybe it was you, or somebody across the street. All the neighbors are rattlesnakes, varmints looking for a chance to slam the door in your face. The same the whole world over. You know that." "I don't," said Mother Chewett, who put her hands over her ears. "I don't know any such thing. Varmints. I'm scared, Mert." "Of what? When your time comes, it comes, and tears won't save you." She had observed that her mother had begun to shed a few. "When Homer died, I used up all the fear I had in me, and all the grief, too. If there's somebody loose around here that wants to cut my throat, I'll wish him luck. What difference does it make? It's all the same in eternity. Just remember, if one bird carried every single grain of sand, grain by grain, across the ocean, by the time he got 'em all on the other side, that would only be the beginning of eternity. So blow your nose." The grim information, announced from church pulpits, distributed over telephone wires, publicized by Garden City's radio station KIUL, a tragedy unbelievable and shocking beyond words, struck 4 members of the Herb Clutter family late Sunday night or early today. Death, brutal and without apparent motive, producing the average recipient a reaction nearer that of Mother Chewett than that of Mrs. Claire. Amazement, shading into dismay, a shallow horror sensation that Cold Springs of personal fear swiftly deepened. Hartman's Cafe, which contains 4 roughly made tables and a lunch counter, could accommodate but a fraction of the frightened gossips, mostly male, who wished to gather there. The owner, Mrs. Bess Hartman, a sparsely flushed, unfoolish lady with bobbed gray and gold hair and bright, authoritative green eyes, is a cousin of Postmistress Claire, whose style of candor Mrs. Hartman can equal, perhaps surpass. "Some people say I'm a tough old bird, but the Clutter business sure took the fly out of me," she later said to a friend. "Imagine anybody pulling a stunt like that. Time I heard it when everybody was pouring in here talking all kinds of wild-eyed stuff. My first thought was Bonnie. Of course, it was silly, but we didn't know the facts, and a lot of people thought maybe on account of her spells. Now we don't know what to think. It must have been a grudge killing, done by somebody who knew the house inside out. But who hated the Clutters? I never heard a word against them. They were about as popular as a family can be, and if something like this could happen to them, then who's safe, I ask you? One old man sitting here that Sunday, he put his finger right on it, the reason nobody can sleep. He said, all we've got out here are our friends. There isn't anything else. In a way, that's the worst part of the crime. What a terrible thing when neighbors can't look at each other without kind of wondering. Yes, it's a hard fact to live with, but if they ever do find out who done it, I'm sure it'll be a bigger surprise than the murders themselves. Mrs. Bob Johnson, the wife of the New York life insurance agent, is an excellent cook, but the Sunday dinner she had prepared was not eaten. At least, not while it was warm. For just as her husband was plunging a knife into the roast pheasant, he received a telephone call from a friend. And that, he recalls rather ruefully, was the first I heard of what happened in Holcomb. I didn't believe it. I couldn't afford to. Lord, I had Clutter's check right here in my pocket. A piece of paper worth $80,000. If what I'd heard was true. But I thought, it can't be. There must be some mistake. Things like that don't happen. You don't sell a man a big policy one minute and he's dead the next. Murdered. Meaning double indemnity. I didn't know what to do. I called the manager of our office in Wichita. He told him how I had the check but hadn't put it through, and asked what was his advice. Well, it was a delicate situation. It appeared that legally we weren't obliged to pay, but morally, that was another matter. Naturally, we decided to do the moral thing. The two persons who benefited by this honorable attitude, Eviana Jarcho and her sister Beverly, sole heirs to their father's estate, were, within a few hours of the awful discovery, on their way to Garden City, Beverly traveling from Winfield, Kansas, where she had been visiting her fiancé, and Eviana from her house in Mount Carroll, Illinois. Gradually, in the course of the day, other relatives were notified, among them Mr. Clutter's father, his two brothers, Arthur and Clarence, and his sister, Mrs. Harry Nelson, all of Larned, Kansas, and his second sister, Mrs. Elaine Seltzer of Palatka, Florida. Also, the parents of Bonnie Clutter, Mr. and Mrs. Arthur B. Fox, who lived in Pasadena, California, and her three brothers, Harold of Visalia, California, Howard of Oregon, Illinois, and Glenn of Kansas City, Kansas. Indeed, the better part of those on the Clutter's Thanksgiving guest list were either telephoned or telegraphed, and the majority set forth at once for what was to be a family reunion not around a groaning board, but at the graveside of a mass burial. At the teacherage, Wilma Kidwell was forced to control herself in order to control her daughter, for Susan, puffy-eyed, sickened by spasms of nausea, argued, inconsolably insisted, that she must go, must run, the 3 miles to the Rupp farm. "Don't you see, Mother," she said, "if Bobby just hears it. He loved her. We both did. I have to be the one to tell him." But Bobby already knew. On his way home, Mr. Ewalt had stopped at the Rupp farm and consulted with his friend Johnny Rupp, a father of 8, of whom Bobby is third. Together, the two men went to the bunkhouse, a building separate from the farmhouse proper, which is too small to shelter all the Rupp children. The boys live in the bunkhouse, the girls at home. They found Bobby making his bed. He listened to Mr. Ewalt, asked no questions, and thanked him for coming. Afterward, he stood outside in the sunshine. The Rupp property is on a rise, an exposed plateau, from which he could see the harvested, glowing land of River Valley Farm, scenery that occupied him for perhaps an hour. Those who tried to distract him could not. The dinner bell sounded, and his mother called him to come inside, called until finally her husband said, "No, I'd leave him alone." Larry, a younger brother, also refused to obey the summoning bell. He circled around Bobby, helpless to help but wanting to, even though he was told to go away. Later, when his brother stopped standing and started to walk, heading down the road and across the fields toward Holcomb, Larry pursued him. "Hey, Bobby, listen, if we're going somewhere, why don't we go in the car?" His brother wouldn't answer. He was walking with purpose, running really, but Larry had no difficulty keeping stride. Though only 14, he was the taller of the two, the deeper-chested, the longer-legged, Bobby being, for all his athletic honors, rather less than medium-sized. Compact but slender, a finely made boy with an open, homely, handsome face. "Hey, Bobby, listen, they won't let you see her. It won't do any good." Bobby turned on him and said, "Go back. Go home." The younger brother fell behind, then followed at a distance. Despite the pumpkin season temperature, the day's aired glitter, both boys were sweating as they approached a barricade that state troopers had erected at the entrance to the River Valley Farm. Many friends of the Clutter family and strangers from all over Finney County as well had assembled at the site, but none was allowed past the barricade, which, soon after the arrival of the Rupp brothers, was briefly lifted to permit the exit of 4 ambulances, the number finally required to remove the victims, and a car filled with men from the sheriff's office. Men who, even at that moment, were mentioning the name of Bobby Rupp, for Bobby, as he was to learn before nightfall, was their principal suspect. From the parlor window, Susan Kidwell saw the white cortege glide past, and watched until it had rounded the corner and the unpaved street's easily airborne dust had landed again. She was still contemplating the view when Bobby, shadowed by his large little brother, became a part of it. A wobbly figure headed her way. Far off in the town of Olathe, in a hotel room where window shades darkened the midday sun, Perry lay sleeping, with a gray portable radio murmuring beside him. Except for taking off his boots, he had not troubled to undress. He had merely fallen face down across the bed, as though sleep were a weapon that had struck him from behind. The boots, black and silver buckled, were soaking in a wash basin filled with warm, vaguely pink-tinted water. A few miles north, in the pleasant kitchen of a modest farmhouse, Dick was consuming a Sunday dinner. The others at the table, his mother, his father, his younger brother, were not conscious of anything uncommon in his manner. He arrived home at noon, kissed his mother, readily replied to questions his father put concerning his supposed overnight trip to Fort Scott, and sat down to eat, seeming quite his ordinary self. Hi, it's me again. I know I said supposed. Jordan, literally, you must be on drugs. The word is supposed, just in case you guys didn't know and you didn't catch it, and you probably laughed at me because that's not even a word. When the meal was over, the 3 male members of the family settled in the parlor to watch a televised basketball game. The broadcast had only begun when the father was startled to hear Dick snoring. As he remarked to the younger brother, he never thought he'd live to see the day when Dick would rather sleep than watch basketball. The younger brother, it literally says boy right there. Where did you get brother from? I don't know. At this point, I think I probably should stop watching David Dobrik and learn how to actually read a darn book. But of course, he did not understand how very tired Dick was. Did not know that his dozing son had, among other things, driven over 800 miles in the past 24 hours. Okay, Miss Haynes, I'm done. You can start doing your lesson now.